means that protected time has started and we're not allowed to ask few ask. Hearing this, we should end the speech as soon as possible. Without any further ado, I call on the Prime Minister to open the debate. One question, since the debate is being streamed, is there anyone who has an issue with the video right now?
No problem.
Anyone else?
Can I start? Honorable judges, Macedonia is on a path to something that is called Europe. We want to go forward, we want to develop ourselves as a high-quality nation, which is going to be very competitive in the economical and political environment in all around Europe. However, due to the character of the society, the multicultural level, we have two separate ethnicities who are predominantly existent in the Republic of Macedonia, and the only way they could achieve the mutual interest of both ethnicities is if they collaborate. Today in my speech I'm going to explain how it is in the best interest of the Albanians and Macedonians to participate through an ethnic Macedonian party within the system, and I'm going to explain how it is better for the internal integration and also external for integrating in the EU on the long run. But first of all, I would like to define the terms of the motion. So we believe that the interest as a term would be a political interest, the interest of integration, education, and promotion of rights within the Macedonian community. Ethnic Albanians, I don't believe there is a need to define that, and it's best served through participation in ethnic Macedonian parties, like SDSM or VMRO, who are the predominant parties of ethnic Macedonians in our country. So first of all, what is the purpose of a political party? There are two main goals. First one is getting to power or taking the government in your own hands. And second one is having influence over important decision-making processes. So how in this moment Albanians cannot invest or cannot promote their own interest? Well, the model is very simply put. Macedonian parties at this moment, and Albanian parties also, protect the interests only of their ethnicities. So ethnic Albanian parties like DU and DPA don't have actually large supporters in the Republic of Macedonia due to the perception that they only promote and only protect right-wing Albanian parties, because the concept of these parties is predominantly ethnic. Well, so if they want to win an election in recent years, they wouldn't be allowed to do so due to the number of Albanians in our country. The electorate of ethnic Albanians is around 20%. So to make the math, it is very difficult or even impossible to have a high standing point of power within the Macedonian system in order to influence, to protect their own interests. So what we believe is that if they want to achieve the things that go majorly in their interest, like education, promotion of rights, political integration, and many others, the best way to do so is if they participate in the election process through the Macedonian, predominantly ethnic Macedonian parties. Why? First of all, because now they would get the chance to win the power and get inside the government from a standpoint of power. Secondly, because not only would they no longer stand alone in the electorate process, because they were more or less isolated from general politics, but they would be a part of something more major, which is fighting for the main electorate in the Republic of Macedonia. Because we have two different rivalries, which I'm going to talk about later, about the integration. But mainly, my main point is that standing with Macedonian parties is the best way to promote their interest, and it has been proven before. For example, the Ramko Treaty from 2001, and also the Tetovo University problem. They came to be realized due to Macedonian parties. So we've shown that Macedonian parties can actually help Albanians or Albanian parties or Albanian ethnic groups to achieve some of their own interests, which they cannot do alone. Yes?
But also is due to existence of Albanian national parties, and therefore they are lobbying for that agreement, and therefore Macedonian parties have to agree to that.
Of course, but they didn't have to agree. Now there is a very strong point on that one. In order for these Albanian parties to influence or to actually get that Tetovo University, they must have had the support from Macedonian parties. So the only way they could do so is if they work together with the Macedonian parties. So in order to have a stronger influence, they must somehow be a part of that group. Now, thank you. So moving on. So they won't have to more or less negotiate their way for their interest, and we believe that that is important. Second point, internal integration. On the long run, this sort of policy will ease the ethnic tensions in the Republic of Macedonia. And we believe that is good and of benefit to both Macedonians and Albanians. Why? There will be a situation if Albanians come to Macedonian parties, where they will be in a position where they must protect the mutual interest of both Macedonians and Albanians. And the perception in the society won't be that Albanian parties protect only Albanians or Macedonian parties only protect the rights of the Macedonians. No, but there's going to be a perception that both parties represent certain ideologies which would be competitive internally within Macedonian society. And that way they're going to try to provide better and better political programs in order to receive their electorate. We believe that that is really good because on that way, they would not only the Albanians would be in a better position for negotiation and reaching better agreements for their own interests. However, it is going to be good also for Macedonians because now internally they're going to have a reason to stay together or a reason to cooperate, and we believe that is good. In the current situation, VMRO and SDS are predominantly stronger parties, and they don't need Albanian parties in order to reach to power. But this way, if DUE and DPA or Albanian parties, let's say, if they wouldn't exist, the Albanians would be a very important factor for Macedonian parties to reach their goals because now they're going to be the electorate of the Albanians. And from that position, they would have a better moment or a better position for negotiating with Macedonian parties. Because on that way, they're going to protect the mutual interest of both Macedonians and Albanians, and they're going to have a position of higher power within the Macedonian political hierarchy. So for all these reasons that I mentioned previously, I am very proud to propose the motion.
Okay, I will start with some rebuttal and then I will present our arguments. First, I would like to say that the Albanians are important now. They are the minority and they are important now. They should have the power to show their visions, their culture, and to protect their visions and their culture and their traditions. And they should have that chance to show that they can, that they must have some rights. So about the statement that the Albanians will be important factor if they have own parties, when they have own parties, I can say that they are important now, and they should be important, and they must be important because they are part of this country. So they must be important, and they must, we have to protect not only the majority but the minority too. So this is actually our yeah.
Why do you believe that participating in ethnic Macedonian parties is going to hurt Albanian tradition and culture? How is this connected in any way?
Well, when there is a problem about between the Albanians and the Macedonians, there should be this problem is on the culture. It is based on a cultural or religious or no matter what problem or issue. So we believe that the Albanians should and must have the right to protect their visions when they have their own political party, and we think that there is no problem if they become important factor, because they are now and they must be important factor, and everybody should know that they have rights, and everybody should and they should have rights. So no, thank you. Our first argument is that they should be presented by someone who believes in their vision and who is from their ethnos, because only by this way they can protect their visions, they can show what their visions are, and they can be understood actually what they want and what they want actually. So when there is a problem between the two sides, it should be, of course, okay, so when there is a problem, no thank you, when there is a problem between the two sides, we should resolve it. This is one of the ways that it should be. There is a problem with these Albanians and Macedonian people, so it is based on a, no thank you, it is based on a, no thank you, it is based on these sites, and we think that they should have their presenter who, no thank you, who can easily present their visions, no thank you, their visions and their culture and their interests, yeah. No thank you. And then we think that Macedonia is a democratic country. Of course it is. So therefore, everybody should have the right to have its own political party. No thank you. Its own political party, no matter if it is a part of the minority or a part of the majority. So there shouldn't be double standards for nobody. Everybody should have the right to stand up over somebody and tell what their vision is. Yeah, I'll take your question.
If they are going to be a part of the Macedonian party, they're still going to have people who represent them within that party.
Yes, but all of these people, but we think that they can, they can protect the interests of the Albanians only if they have their own party, because like that they will be supported by their people, I mean by their Albanian people, and no thank you, and they won't be on the okay, no thank you. We don't think that the Albanians will take the power. As you said, they have lower vote, and they don't have potential to win the elections. Yeah, no thank you. So they don't have the potential to win the elections, and we think that they will be part of this parliament, and they will be part of these presenters of the people, and they will only protect the interests of their people, of their people. And their job is only to do that, to protect the interests of their own people, because they are the minority and they must have rights. Okay. I think that we proved that Albanians should have their own political party, which will support, which will protect the visions of all the Albanians. And only by this way we should and we can resolve this problem between the two sides. And I think, and that's why I beg you to oppose this motion. Thank you.
The proposition is not saying that Albanians are not important in our society. We're not saying that they shouldn't have the rights and that they shouldn't be represented in the parliament. We're saying that they are so important that in order to achieve their rights better than in the status quo, they should become parts of Macedonian ethnical political groups. Now, what does that mean? We are supposed to compare the status quo, the situation in which they are right now, the influence that they have right now, and the possible outcome and the possible influence that they can have if they are a part of a Macedonian political party. Now, what we're actually saying is that because due to the fact that they are a marginalized group and that they DU and DEPA and all of the other Albanian parties only get votes by the Albanian minority in our countries, that they are never strong enough and influential enough to gain the power in our society. Now, we believe that we are actually offering them a better way to be represented in the society, because if they are a part of a party that can actually win the elections, they will have much bigger and much greater influence in our society. Now, what the opposition was constantly talking about today is how the Albanians should be represented by someone who believes in their vision, in their rights, and in their cultures. We're saying that this is true, we're completely agreeing with this. It's just that what they're forgetting is the fact that they are still going to be represented by people who believe in their vision and in their rights. The only difference is the fact that those people will be a part of a generally Macedonian ethnical party. Now, we believe that their interests will still be represented. It's just going to be within a Macedonian political party that is probably going to win the elections and therefore be much more influential. So not only that these people will still represent their goals and their rights and their vision, they're going to do it better because they will be much more influential than the Albanian political parties that are influential right now. The difference in a second. So the difference that we are pointing out today is they're going to be much more stronger if they're going to be a part of that political party.
Don't you think that the Albanians will lose their identity if they are part of a bigger, part of a bigger society and part of a bigger party?
No, on the contrary, I believe that being a part of the society and living in a country where there's actually cultural cohesion and cooperation between the minorities and the majority in the country is actually going to be much more better for their identity, because right now they're seen as a marginalized group in our society. Right now we can see a society where we have a polarization, a Macedonian ethnic bloc and an Albanian ethnic bloc. What we see in these elections right now is having actually two elections, the Macedonian elections and the Albanian elections. Now, why is that so? Because we have a competition between the biggest two Macedonian parties, which are SDS and VMRO, and they're trying to get the Macedonian votes so that they can win in there. And then on the other hand, we have the Albanian parties, which are DU and DEPA, trying to win the Albanian votes so that they can also influence the power. So in a society where we have a segregation between the citizens based on their ethnicity, we see only counterproductive measures that are being taken, and we see much more impatience between the regular, ordinary people, and we believe that we should change that, because if we fight the cultural diversion in our society, if we actually give them a chance to be united and to be cooperated, we believe that on the long run will result with better chances for the Albanian themselves, because they're not only going to be seen as this poor minority who is being marginalized and they don't have rights, they will be actually part of the government so that they can actually much more better empower and influence on their rights. Also, the next thing that they were talking about is how Macedonia is a democracy and how everyone should have a party. We're not saying that they will be banned from having a party. We're not saying that they are not going to be allowed to have a party. We're debating that it would be in their better interest and in their best interest if they actually choose to be a part of a Macedonian political party. Also, we can see how currently Macedonian political parties also have members which are from other ethnicities within. We can see how VMRO has also a lot of Turkish people inside, and that is one more proof that these people are not losing their identity. It's a proof that on the contrary, they're having much more benefits when they are within them, because if you are on the top of the country, then you can influence and then you can actually create the rules in the country. Also, the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is according to us is very important, is something that we're going to achieve on the long run, because this measure is not only beneficial for the Albanians, this measure is also beneficial for the Macedonians and for the other minorities in our country. We believe that if the leaders of the parties unite, it really sends a strong message to the citizens that if we can do it united, that means that you can do it united too. If the political parties, the political figures, in a second, the people who are actually representing the interests of the minorities unite, that sends a clear and a strong message to the ordinary citizens that they can actually unite too. Go ahead.
How a single politician in your party gives you more power if you're one in a million of politicians?
So we believe that it doesn't really matter if you're like one in a million, and what you're actually trying to ask me with these questions is how are they going to embed their influence. We believe that it's not only important how many of you are there, we believe that being a minority is not something that should prevent you from being influential in the politics. On the contrary, we believe that this will be actually helpful to them. That is why we believe that it will actually be beneficial for them. Also, to move on, I was talking about how this will be influential to the ordinary people. If the ordinary people are united, on the long run, the Albanians, and not only the Albanians, the other minorities in our country will also have the chance to be united, to live in a cohesion, to live in a not segregated and a not polarized community, which on the long run means that we're going to see the voters as citizens of this country, not as the Albanians who are supposed to vote for one of these two parties, or the Macedonians who are supposed to vote for one of these two parties. So we believe that the way for a government that should gain the votes in one society is gaining the votes from the citizens of their country and actually protecting their mutual interests, and that is what we are striving for. We believe that we need an integrated society in order to solve this solution, and if the political leaders send this message to the ordinary citizens, on the long run, not only is going to be beneficial for the Albanians, it's going to be beneficial for the Macedonians as well, and of course for the country as a whole and for all of the citizens within the country. So that is why I beg you to propose this motion.
Hello everyone. So the opposition today stands for the fact that Albanians in Macedonia should Albanians interests in Macedonia will be best served through participation in ethnic Albanian parties, because if Macedonians and Albanians collaborate in one big party, the Albanians will lose their identity. They won't be able to stand behind their own interests, but they will have to think about also Macedonians and won't be able to keep their identity. First of all, for the safety of this democratic country, which Macedonia is, it is important for both sides to have their parties, because only by that way they will have someone who stands for their interests, their religion, their culture, their traditions, because we all know that Macedonians and Albanians have different traditions, different cultures, different religions, which means that they cannot collaborate and cannot have the same interests in all regions of politics.
Okay, so if they cannot collaborate according to you, and also they cannot win the elections, how your plan does protect their rights and their identity?
Thank you for the questions, but we all know that now, even though Albanians do not collaborate with Macedonian parties, they have their presenters in the parliament, which means that they can have people to protect their interests and stand for their ethnos. We think that minority is also important for the safety in the country, because if everyone stands behind the interests only for the majority, all the groups of the minority
live together with the majority population.
Thank you. Because we believe
because only if they're presented by someone from their ethnos, they can be truly understood. Their interests can be served through their own presenters, because if they collaborate, if Albanians and Macedonians collaborate in one party, we cannot be sure that in this party they will all have equal rights and equal presenters. No, thank you. In the government's second speech was said that it's so important that they should be, in Albanians it's so important that they should become part of the Macedonian parties, but this will not help Albanians keep their identity and protect their own interests, because they need someone who will understand them, who will present their ethnos, their religion. And in a democratic country such as Macedonia, everyone, no thank you, should have the right to be presented, to speak their voice. Also, Albanians are important now, and in government speech was said that Albanians will become important if they collaborate with Macedonian, which is not true. The minority is also important for the safety of the country. They should have the chance to show that to the country their needs and to their voice to be heard. No, thank you. Also, they are now if Macedonians and Albanians collaborate, there will also be a stereotype for the Albanians that they are the minority, and they cannot have their own party, and their rights they not have the equal rights as the Macedonians, because they cannot have their own party. And if they have their own parties and their own presenters, that will mean that they they're equal with with all the rest of the people living in this country. Also, the government said that if the parties can collaborate, then the people in the country collaborate too, which is not true, because the people are now in the country are united, but they need someone to present them their interests, their religion, their ethnos, because they can live safety in the country only if they feel safe, they feel protected, and they know that their voice will be heard. Thank you.
Macedonia is a democratic country, ladies and gentlemen. And to make the claim that different cultures cannot cooperate in a democratic country in the 21st century is simply preposterous. And that is something that we refuse to believe. We're going to show you how exactly these two cultures can cooperate. We're going to show you how this is going to be in the interest of Albanians. We're going to show you, firstly, in my speech, how this is going to bring to the construction of a better democratic culture, which is going to help Macedonia, the entire country, and therefore Albanians inside Macedonia, and I'm going to show you how this is going to bring Macedonia closer to European integration, to European ideas, which in turn is also going to help Albanians in Macedonia achieve their rights, because this is what the idea of European integration is. And as a consequence of this, my second point is going to be how this is going to encourage Albanians to fight more strongly for their interests, because finally they will see that they have a voice that can be listened to. They will not be seen as a marginalized group in society, and they will no longer see themselves as a marginalized group in society, and therefore they will have a better voice. But firstly, a few points of rebuttal. The first thing they tell us is that the Albanian identity will be removed the moment when Albanians start cooperating with Macedonians. Now that is simply not true. The entire Western world is based on the idea that minorities can collaborate with majorities, that they can live in a democratic country, still maintain their identity, still be who they are, because the idea of this democratic country is that it protects their rights and it protects their identity. And if we wish to claim that Macedonia is a democratic country, and it is, its idea is to protect the rights of minorities. And especially here in the Balkans, we should be aware that the building of peace rests entirely on the building of tolerance between different minorities. And what we have achieved today, now, 23 years from the Yugoslav wars, what has happened is the following, that now, of course, we don't have perfect tolerance, but we have better tolerance than we had before. And this is what we are trying to continue to build. This tolerance means that, of course, that minorities can collaborate with majorities, of course they can coexist. This is the very idea that we stand behind today. If they wish to claim that this is impossible, then they have to tell us categorically why, in the vast majority of cases, truly minorities cannot collaborate with majorities in the 21st century. Secondly, still, Albanians will have the representative in parliament. It's still going to be the same representative with the same ideas behind him. He's still going to be an Albanian. He's not going to stop being of Albanian nationality simply because he's sitting in an ethnic Macedonian party. He's simply going to have a different medium, a medium that can actually win power in parliament, win seats, and can collaborate with those who actually have legislative power. Because Albanian parties currently in Macedonia have none or very few legislative power, and they cannot achieve their interests through this medium entirely, and that means they have to collaborate with the ruling party. Secondly, certainly there will not be a perfect tolerance the moment when Albanians start cooperating with Macedonians, but it's going to be better than today, because today Albanians are seen as a segregated group. There's some kind of spirit of confrontation between Macedonians and Albanians. So what this means is that the moment when Albanians start cooperating with Macedonian parties means they're going to be integrated in the public discourse, not as groups that are separated from the public discourse, not as a minority that is separate from the Macedonians, but as a unified people who works together to better the country. And in that situation, in that moment, is the moment where things can start being better for both the Macedonians and Albanians. We cannot guarantee that things are going to become perfect for ethnic Albanians the moment they start cooperating, but we can guarantee that things are going to be better than today, because today things are at a standstill. They're at a standstill because Macedonians are confronted with Albanians. They do not care about each other's interests, but the moment when they start cooperating, they will have to start caring about each other's interests, because this will mean that this will be an important part of creating the policy of a party, and this party will then have to get an electorate composed of both Macedonians and Albanians. Go ahead.
Do you believe that coalitions are a kind of cooperation between the parties?
Yes, coalitions are a way of political cooperation between two political parties. Now, what I have told you today through my rebuttal is the following, that cultures can cooperate with each other, that it's important that cultures cooperate with each other, and that the moment when they do start cooperating with each other, things are going to start to change. And this is what leads me to my first substantive point. We believe that the idea of a democracy, any democracy, is that the majority is supposed to protect the minority. But the only way this can happen is that the minority has to become integrated with the majority. That we do not perceive two groups simply as two different nationalities, but we perceive them all as citizens. And the moment we start perceiving them all as citizens, with an equal vote in parliament, as equally important members of our party, with whom together we're going to create a plan which is going to be best for our country, because for the entire country of Macedonia to prosper, both the interests of Macedonians and Albanians as citizens have to be served. work with these interests together is the moment when the better democratic culture is built in Macedonia. When this culture is going to influence that the fight of the Albanians for their rights is going to be more listened to, because there will be more activity on the political scene concerning Albanian rights due to this democratic culture. What this leads to is that Macedonia gets closer to European integration. As any democratic country, especially here in the Balkans, of course they want to be close to European integration, closer to the goals of what European integration means, what the European Union means. The closer they get to European integration, the more they are under the supervision of European organizations. When you are under the supervision of European organizations, this means that your minorities are going to have a better situation to protect their rights, simply because you're under supervision of an institution who claims to be the purveyor and progenitor of these rights. But to do this, you need to make a first step. This first step is a cooperation between ethnic Macedonians and ethnic Albanians through political parties. And what this leads us to, as a consequence, which is my second point, is that Albanians will be more encouraged to participate in the political life, to participate in fighting for their own rights. Why? Because now, when they're seen as a segregated community, as a community whose interests are confronted to those of Macedonians, they feel that they cannot achieve their interests. They feel that the only way they can do something is perhaps to support right-wing parties or Albanian nationalism, or to do nothing at all. Why? Because they still do not have the idea, the democratic culture that is going to promote cooperation between Macedonians and Albanians. But the moment when that happens, the moment when this cooperation starts happening and Albanians realize with this democratic culture that they should cooperate, they're going to see that through a medium that is more powerful, they have more power to express their interests. They're going to be more encouraged to participate in fighting for their own rights, to participate in political life. Now they have to be pragmatic. They have to realize that to fight for their interests, to achieve their interests, they have to cooperate. And this is what we are achieving through what we're speaking today. And what the opening government has also spoken to you today, this is in the interest of every single one in the country. This is the interest of the whole country to cooperate, to create a plan that is best for all our citizens. And this is what we stand for today, that every single person in the country is a citizen, no matter what nationality. And the only way we can realize this, the only way we can move things from a standstill where they are today is to cooperate. And for this cooperation, for the idea that Macedonia, at the end of the day, in the 21st century, truly is a democratic country, we are proud to propose.
Madam Speaker, we agree that people should cooperate, but we can see that cooperation can be achieved with coalitions. We don't see why Albanians have to be in the Macedonian parties in order to cooperate. So that's on the first point on the rebuttal, on the closing argument. Second point about the EU. We believe it's a huge logic gap to say that, yeah, just because they'll join to the Macedonian parties, EU will somehow be more less hostile to Macedonia and they will more to accept it. We believe that things like naming dispute are still the most important issues of the EU. So they never proved us that EU will have substantial changes for those things. That's all on the rebuttal. Everything else is going to be interwoven. 4 reasons why one-issue parties, like Albanian's party, are more efficient for Albanian interests than this, comparatively on those things. Firstly, because more Albanian voters are going to vote. Why is this? Because when you don't have Albanian parties, and people vote more for the Macedonian parties, firstly, they see that as a betrayal. They see that those Albanian politicians betrayed their interests because they joined them. Secondly, they see that this attack of their national identity. It's really easy for the nationalists to spin those stories as Macedonia is trying to assimilate those people into their national identity. Thirdly, they see that it's forced integrations. Because of all these reasons, we believe that lots of Albanian people actually are going to boycott those elections and boycott those parties, so they're going to less vote for those parties. Because they are less going to vote, we believe that we are going to have less Albanian people in the parliament. That means the less representation of Albanian people in the parliament. That means the less interest of Albanians. Secondly, about their national identity. When you have the integration into one dominant party, when you have the two nations, that's Albanian and Macedonians, that 10 years ago it was really, really close to the civil war. You have still tensions that are really, really high. We believe it is really too young just to try to integrate them as the way the closing government and the opening government wanted. Well, the problem is, because the Albanian people are going to see this as a threat on their national identity. Why is it problematic? When people see something as a threat on their national identity, they're firstly less likely to participate in democratic things. Secondly, they're going to care most about the national identity. They're less going to care about the education, about infrastructure, about the lack of the corruption, etc., etc. We have example in Serbia, when the Rasim Ljajic joined the dominant Serbian parties. We believe that more Muslim people are voting for extreme and joining the extreme parties and to extreme politicians like Zukorlic, who want to secede Sandžak from Serbia. We see it because those people feel that their national identity is threatened when those people join to those parties and try to achieve goals from the dominant parties. We believe it's going to happen through this. Also, we can see the example in Serbia, that, for example, in Vojvodina, where all minorities have their minority parties, they don't have any conflicts, that those people are living in the harmony because they don't feel that their national identity is threatened. That's why we believe it's much more likely that Albania is going to feel, that more Albanians are going to feel that their national identity is threatened if they are integrated to the dominant Macedonian parties. So we believe that it's going to give more nationalism, less care about the other things, thirdly, more chances of forming things like new paramilitary organizations. It's really, really harmful because this is really, really young nations. 10 years ago, we had basically the rebels who wanted to succeed. We had the conflicts in the Macedonia. We believe that those tensions are still really, really young and fresh. We believe that if they feel again that their national identity is threatened, they're more likely actually to be for those extreme things and to have the problems. We believe it's against the interest of the Albanian population. No. Thirdly, we believe that the bigger bargaining power and bigger coalition of power Albanian party has when it exists as Albanian party. Why? Because Albanian party is basically one issue party. It's the party that's talking only about Albanian interests. When you have two Macedonian parties, and it's really, really difficult for them to enter into cooperation, because they have the contrary interests. But however, with the Albanian party, it's much more likely that they enter into coalition because they don't have a strong stances on things like economy, on things like education, etc. We believe that that's why it's more likely that Albanian party enters into coalition when it exists as an Albanian party rather than by the. Even if one party is really, really strong, still they're going to be more likely to enter in the coalition with the Albanian party because they want to redistribute responsibility, so they can also blame the other parties for their failures. That's why we believe it's much more likely that the Albanian party actually is going to enter into coalition. And even if it's not happening right now, we believe it's going to happen much faster because all things are going to sign, I'm telling you, rather than if you have separate parties. Fourthly, representation of interest. Well, there are many of reasons why I believe there are going to be less Albanian politicians in those parties. Couple of them. Firstly, we believe that other things like economy, like schooling, like education are more important to the big dominant parties. That's why we believe that people who are Albanians and who want to fight for Albanian issues are less likely to be really, really successful in those parties. Why is this really, really problematic? Because it means less Albanian politicians succeeding in those parties. Secondly, we see that those parties are really big with a huge hierarchy. That means it's really, really difficult to climb up on the ladder in those parties. It's really difficult to when you enter the new Albania. When you have new Albanian politicians entering in those parties to climb to be successful politicians. Thirdly, before that, I'll give POI to opening.
The current situation where entering coalition Albanian party rivalries is that less getting to the government of Macedonians. How is that a benefit to the Albanians?
Sorry, can you repeat? But
okay, so in the current situation, when entering coalition Albanian party rival parties must ask less for Albanian rights to enter the Macedonian coalition.
No, they're just ridiculous because Albanian parties are existing for Albania more only talking about Albanian issues. You hear more about this, you hear more media coverage on that. You have more Albanian members in the parliament. That's really, really important. And thirdly and finally, when you have Albanian party, you have leaders of Albanian parties. Leaders are much more covered by the media. Leaders are really successful. People vote for the leaders. Leaders are the one that actually, Madam Speaker, attract the voters and attract the huge electoral body. When you have just a bunch of Albanian politicians that are not really influential in the major parties, they're less likely to attract more voters. They're less likely to have more media coverage. They're less likely to ask for bigger changes for Albanian ethics. What we brought today, we brought you 4 reasons why one issue party, like only Albanian party, brings more benefits to the Albanian minority rather than when they're joined in the 2 big parties. For all these reasons, we are more than proud to oppose this motion.
In this debate, we have heard 2 clashes, 2 main clashes on the second table of this debate. Firstly, what I'm going to talk about is whether, why is, if having one ethnical party, not ethnical, but having one party is better than having a coalition between 2 or 3 ethnical parties. And secondly, what I'm going to talk about is whether the participation of the Albanians and Macedonians will be higher if we have ethnical parties or if we have parties that are mixed with mixed ethnicity. So firstly, if we are talking about what is the problem with coalition? A problem with coalition is that you still have ethnical Macedonian party and you still have ethnical Albanian party. That means, in the perception of the people, you don't have one party that is going to stand for the interest of the entire Macedonia, who is a country. And you have somebody who is fighting only for Albanian interest, only for Macedonian interest. We find this problematic. We think that coalitions in that area of ethnicity are wrong, and you can achieve your interest as an ethnicity better if you start in a bigger party. How? Because that party is represented on the bigger scale. That party is being covered by the media largely, and that means that they can express their interests to that party. And why would Macedonians have, oh no thank you, why would they just say, oh no, you Albanians, we don't want to solve your problems? It is in the interest of the entire Macedonia, of all its citizens, to create a platform so they can work together. And we believe that we can work together the best way if you have a representation of the interest through that party, where you can put your ideas, where you can put your values on the table, and you can start expressing that through that party. That means you can then have your education policies created not only for Albanians, not only for Macedonians, but then you're starting a platform to create an education which is a Macedonian education, which is not based on their ethnicity. It is that education is something that is hugely important hugely important for the entire country. And we believe that not only ethnical parties should propose these topics, but huge parties should be among those who discuss these topics. Yes, first.
If the two parties from Albanians and Macedonians collaborate, does that mean that the 2 ethnical groups will collaborate?
But ethnical groups within that one party, they're actually being forced to collaborate. Forced in a way that in their interest is to promote their party on a bigger scale towards the entire citizens of Macedonia. So that means they have to get votes from Macedonians and from Albanians. That means they have to start creating policies that are better for the entire Macedonia, for Albanians and for for Macedonians, and not only for the one party they are represented as their ethnicity. So, if you have that one party, it's better to express your own interest. The second, what I'm going to talk about is about participation of is about participation of Albanians and Macedonians on the elections. What the second opposition is telling us is that we will have attack to they will see that this as an attack to their national identity. They will see it, and because of that, they will boycott their elections and something like that. But that is something that is saying, we have a problem, but we are not going to solve it. Like, we are going to just leave it behind, and we are not going to care about. We will have the same system, which still produces same old problems. We will have the same system that is creating all the disputes and all the confrontations between these ethnical parties. And that is something that will not lead us to anything. And tensions are still fresh, but we have to start from something. We believe now that after 20 years or so, as you said, that is the right time now to start creating policies that are going to be helpful towards the entire, towards every ethnicity in Macedonia. That means that Albanians now and Macedonians will have to start seeing through a certain period of time that their interests are better represented if it is on a bigger scale, if it's not separated, if it's not coerced all the time. It is being better represented if you have that one party that is going to that you're likely more to connect to their policies and connect to their ideas, because they're being represented on a more unified scale than being separated in two elections, in two policies for education, in two policies in economy, in two policies in political parties and everything else. So that is the reason why we believe that Albanians now and Macedonians will start through time seeing that and start participating, because it's the only way they will understand they can change something on their elections. That means they're going to give votes to these parties who are now being who now represent all the interests, and now they can choose which educational or economical policy is better for the entire Macedonia, and not only for Albanians or Macedonians within Macedonia. So what we've proved is that we believe that if you have that one party that is representing interest, is better to create policies. It's easier for people to understand. It's easier. It doesn't create collisions. It doesn't create collisions all the time. And we believe that participation of the entire Macedonia will be higher if they start seeing they will have more interest in it. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, all benefits the government side imagines that will happen derives from a mechanism they never explained, that the moment we have mixture of people of different national identities will suddenly make us feel more happier or more integrated. On the other hand, we provide you crucial analysis why the things will be worse off, why people will feel less represented, and in that way will turn to more extremism as such. But first, and I will sum up this debate in explaining how minor parties and major parties function, and therefore how it impacts a bargaining power of the parties, how it impacts more policies passed for the Albanian side, and furthermore how it led to less extremism, and therefore all the fertile ground for further benefits and further integration of Albanians within Macedonian society. One point of rebuttal. Feeling of representation. When we put a few of Albanians into the major party and within the parliament, suddenly Albanians and Macedonians will feel represented as a whole society. But the problem with that is, as Ilya explained before, but never responded to, is that you never explained to how now the Albanian issue is not mitigated and silenced among major parties. You never respond to our analysis that major parties, since they target the majority of population, which is Macedonian such, firstly, have to talk about other politics first, about the economy, about the other stuff that don't attract Albanians primarily, but secondarily or thirdly. Therefore, their voice is silenced in that way. And secondly, since those major parties that are predominantly Macedonian, they will still have to cover major body as Macedonians, and therefore to stream their policies in that way in order to gain most votes. So, to begin our analysis, what is the difference with major and minor parties? Well, minor parties, single-issue parties as we call them, can gather more power around one issue. Therefore, when you have 20% of Albanians in Macedonia, 24% of Albanians will vote on that party, and that party that will advocate Albanian issues only will have more power than each and single politician among those parties, because now you will have spillover effect of the voices. Now you have a party. You have a party who responds to the problem, and the problem is Albanian identity that is endangered. Now that party can gather more power and more legitimacy to represent this base. On the other hand, major party, as I explained in my rebuttal, has to target a wider group. Will not address problems of Albanians, and the problems of Albanians will not be addressed and will not be tackled. Therefore, we make a crucial difference between being in coalition and being a member of the party, because being in coalition provides you in a process of creating that politician. The major party now needs you. Now, since the major party needs you, major party has to negotiate with your party. Therefore, you have to make some offers and deals. Therefore, you make a trade-off. You trade off your votes on the economic policies to the major party, for example, and therefore major party offers certain benefits to the group you represent, for the policies that you represent. And that is how more benefits for the Albanian side is passed, because more policies that benefits Albanians are passed in that way. On the other hand, on a comparison, what happens when you have politicians, Albanian politicians within a major party? You have something that is called party discipline. You cannot speak what you want and talk what you want. You have to represent what your party says. Therefore, you have a leader of the party who will decide what to say and what not to say. Just when I finish this point. Now, you have less media coverage. The party has media coverage. You do not have, because you refuse to be leader of the party, you become member 1 in a million, as we said in a POI, and therefore you're influenced by yourself. You make the dispersion of influence, and therefore you do not have such a bargaining power as you had before opening.
Let's agree that the Albanians will not feel represented if their politicians are part of the party. Now, don't you agree that it actually means that the party who wants to win the election will have to give them better conditions and better argument against the Albanian voters?
No. Because, as I provide you, now major parties who want them in coalition and who need them in coalition offer more benefits. Now, what we'll say to you, that in order to attract Albanian votes, Albanians who still feel misrepresented, and as Ilya said, but never responded to, now feel that those politicians betrayed them. Politicians who went to the other parties, and that is the crucial thing here, how we lose. We gain more extremism because they feel less represented. Now, those Albanian politicians are not so attractive to the Albanians, and therefore major parties do not have interest to offer them benefits and to offer them some credits. But furthermore, not just that is the negative side. The most important negative side is now that the Albanians, whose autonomy within Macedonia and all the other benefits that gain in Tetovo, and the moment you recognize that they gain and that we have more tolerance that we had before, you recognize that current system worked, that current system made the progress. Therefore, we say to let's continue with this progress. And when Albanians start to feel sure and start not to feel that their identity is threatened, you will have a natural process of integration. Then they will care more about the economy and vote for the non-Albanian parties, perhaps. Okay. Now, finally, the analysis of extremists and how the extremists work. Extremists work when their national identity, political parties are response to the demand on the political market. Currently, the demand exists because Albanians still feel in danger, still feel whether they will have books on their language or whether they will can practice their religion. Therefore, they still need to keep their autonomy safe. And therefore, when they see politicians who will not advocate specifically and only for their rights, but also have to be integrated in other parties, they feel betrayed. And therefore the politicians that are more extreme ones, who fight for the Albanian rights in more extreme way, will gain more power. And therefore we will as a final outcome, we will have non-institutional fighting for their rights and more resulting more tensions, and therefore worse off picture to the world and worse off picture to the Macedonians, because now you will have more tensions because they will not see each other as the ones who cooperate and work together, but the ones who hate each other, and therefore we are proud to oppose.